Okay, well, it has hit 6:02, so I think we'll get started tonight. So, wow, thank you. We have over 600 people joining us on this webinar tonight, and that's fantastic to see. So, unfortunately, we can't see all of you, but you can see 6 of our faces, and we'll do introductions here in a minute. But thank you again for joining us this evening. I'm guessing several of you have joined the various board meetings we've had over the course of the summertime, where we've been talking, of course, at length about our return to learn plan. So we appreciate all the work that's gone into the various plans as we've continued to receive guidance, of course, from the Department of Ed over the course of the summer. And we have had just a tremendous amount of outpouring of support, and whether that's come in the form of community members and parents being our cheerleaders to staff that's completely been all in with helping us on our plans. It's really been amazing. And you know, in times of crises, you certainly see what people are made of, and that's what makes me incredibly proud to be part of this district and to get to work every day for our staff, students, parents, and community. So thank you again for spending your evening with us tonight. I am Amy Courtmeyer. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Iowa City Schools, and with me tonight I have Diane Schumacher. And I'm just going to let people go around because on the second slide, we've got some news to share with you tonight, but I'll let these individuals each share what that news is. So Diane, we'll go over to you next.
Sure, I'm Diane Schumacher. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for the elementary. Greg, how about you?
Hi, I'm Greg Schultz, and I was muted. Now I'm not. I am taking over, assuming we get board approval, the directorship of the PK-12 online programming here for Iowa City Schools.
Eliza?
Good evening. I'm Eliza Proctor. I'm the principal at Lemmy Elementary, and I am helping to support the online program, the elementary capacity, however, still maintaining the principal at Lemmy.
Hi everyone, I'm Amber Dobbs. I'm the building principal at Wickham Elementary, and just like Eliza, I'm supporting the elementary portion of the online learning as well as maintaining my position at Wickham.
Good evening, I'm Kelly Webb. I'm the principal at Longfellow, and I'm also helping to support the online program and also maintaining my position at Longfellow Elementary as a principal. So it's great to learn a little bit along with everybody else.
Thanks everyone for those introductions. I'm going to have Diane start to share her screen then, and we'll work through the presentation. We've got it built out in 3 main chunks this evening, and the first part is just to reiterate the enrollment process, and then we're going to spend the next chunk of time talking about our hybrid model, and then end with our PK-12 online learning program. If it makes sense, if we're seeing questions come in that are particular to each of those 3 areas, we'll probably pause after we're done closing out those slides and try to answer questions around enrollment or e-registration. The same for hybrid, and then the same for PK-12 online. We do have a board meeting tomorrow evening where we'll be continuing to talk about return to learn, and it would also encourage you to watch the board meeting as we continue to share plans. So just a reminder, you've been seeing emails, hopefully, from either Matt Degner, Interim Superintendent, or Kristen Peterson, Director of Community Affairs. Our e-registration is open, and technically e-registration is open all year long. Of course, we are welcoming families to our district, 365 days a year. But this particular choice that we've put in front of our families this year is a unique one. We've not had a PK-12 online learning program in the past. And so the way we went about figuring out what parent interest would look like was we put this question or posed this in our parent permission section. So if you have not been into PowerSchool yet and begun the e-registration process, you're going to find a tab in there called Parent Permissions. And this is not the only question in that parent permissions section, but it is going to ask you whether you want to enroll your student as normal, and what normal looks like this year is yet to be seen, right? In the standard class section. And that means your student would be following wherever we're at in that continuum of learning models. We may meet on site, we might be fully on site in a hybrid scenario where part of the student body is on site for a few days a week. then they're offsite while the other half the student body comes in, or in the remote continuous learning offsite schedule, or any combination. And we know that in July, we received different guidance from the Department of Ed around when we could go and apply for waivers. And we know we're in the middle of that conversation still with the board, and that conversation will pick up again tomorrow night. So the other option then is to enroll in the PK 12 online learning program. You're going to see the continuum of learning models here in the next slide, and we're going to hear more about, like I foreshadowed, the hybrid scenario and the online learning program here in a minute. If I could get Diane to click on that enrollment link at the very top there. I hyperlinked it at the top there. There we go, Diane. This page will take you to the district website, and it's been linked in previous communication. But hopefully we've made it fairly simple or more clear this year. We really tried to work hard to build this site out where if you are a family with a new student versus if you're a family that's have returning students, the process looks slightly different. But by and large, there are three main steps. And one is the PowerSchool account. If you don't have one as a new student, we need to get you hooked up there. And then to start the e-registration process through PowerSchool. Of course, there's paper forms that we need turned in, and then there's fees associated with that, with coming back to school as well. With our returning students, then the same three steps are involved. Of course, there's not very many forms if you have been with us previously. But Diane's clicking on an example here, it looks like. So for our returning students, we've built it out to show those three steps. And as if you could, there you go, Diane. You can see step 1, step 2, and step 3. And if Diane would expand the step 1 area there, we've tried to further reiterate that parents are going to see this option as they get into the e-registration process through PowerSchool. As I alluded to before, August 19th is a deadline that we're utilizing for parents to make the selection in standard enrollment versus online enrollment. We need to do that, of course, because we are looking at a huge task of having to staff our programs and staff much differently than we've staffed in the past. And that's the kind of turnaround time that we need to be able to pull this off to start the school year with our staff all in the correct seats. So we would encourage you to do that. Come Thursday then, when that deadline has passed, you know, our families that have not registered to this point, we would be marking their student as for standard enrollment. Families do have the option at trimester to opt into the BK-12 online program as well as to opt out. And again, we're providing that flexibility because we know this is a unique year, but those are going to be potentially, depending on what that interest looks like from our families, big opportunities for us to reconsider our staffing at that time. I just happened to see a question pop in about when the trimester is going to end. And because we've moved the school year calendar for 2 weeks back, that trimester now is set to close. And it's the beginning of December. I want to say December 7th, roughly. So I wasn't able to monitor the chat very well, but any of the panelists, did you see any enrollment questions that I could take or answer? Maybe Diane or somebody can ask them or respond if you saw some things that you're comfortable answering.
There was a question in there asking when somebody can enroll into the PK-12 online program in PowerSchool, and that answer is right now. You would go ahead and enroll, and as Amy indicated, it's in that parent permission page, the one on the bottom. You have the option for A, standard enrollment, or B, the online learning program.
Thanks, Eliza.
There's another question that says, how often could the on-site model change? Multiple times per trimester or only at trimester? Well, Amy, you might want to take that one, but it really depends on the what's happening, with the COVID in our schools. So if there are infections, it could go completely online. If not, we anticipate staying in the AABB model for quite some time. We wouldn't see changing that soon. Mm-hmm. Until the rates were very low in our county.
Yeah, I think that was fair. And the DE did put some guidance out. Again, it was newer guidance for us in July. And that's also, I believe, going to be discussed at the board meeting tomorrow night. I think different people have different opinions on what those metrics look like that have been set forth for us right now. There's a question about supplies, and if students are online, we would still want them to have their typical, school supplies that we would ask them to have in the classroom. Other questions the panelists are seeing?
Amy, if someone has already made a choice, can they go back into PowerSchool and change it?
Absolutely. You can change that through Wednesday night. Yep.
And then a question was asked, what are our stats running right now as far as how many people are choosing online versus option A?
Yeah, so I pulled that up because I knew that might be of interest. This afternoon, I think in our communication, we shared that we're nearing 5,000 students total enrolled. We've got about 71% of our parents that have gone in and e-registered already. So of that 71%, again, approximately 5,000, just shy of have enrolled. And the breakdown right now looks like about 2,700 elementary students, 750 junior high students, and around 1,300 high school students. All right. Any other questions we can take, or should we move into hybrid?
Amy, if they're having any trouble getting registered, who can they reach out to for support?
Yep, I would continue to call your building. This week, we've got some staff available. Given the fact that we delayed the start of school for 2 years, we've got certain staff on contract that would began the beginning of August, and we had to put a pause for a few days on some staff members being present in our buildings, but that should pick up again next week. If you're having problems right now, I would reach out to your building principal specifically in case their secretary wasn't in the building.
And you gave numbers of people who are registering for online, but percentage of those who currently registered, we're running about 45% of our students who are registering for the online program. Is that correct?
Yep, 45% of the 71% that have enrolled.
Yep. All right, so some of the other questions, I think some of those will be answered as we go through the rest of the presentation. So we'll keep moving on. I'm going to take you through option A. So option A, if you were to choose that, you are choosing to come to school depending on what availability we have to take you at school. So this is our continuum of what option A might look like. At any point in time during the school year, we could change from one model to another. It wouldn't necessarily change at trimester. It could change 2 weeks into the school year. It could change 2 months into the school year. It really would change based on our COVID positivity rates that are in our community and based on what the Iowa Department of Public Health and the Iowa Department of Education is recommending for us to do. So we may at times be in a situation way over here on the right where we could have 100% of our students coming to school, at least 100% of those who've chosen option A. We could be in that situation if our positivity rates really drop. We could also be in a situation where we feel that it is not safe to have anyone at school. So even though you might have chosen option A, we might be in a situation where we say everyone has to be 100% online. And then there's a situation kind of here in the middle that we call hybrid. So that could easily be a situation we see maybe starting the school year, depending on what the board decides, that we might have half of the kids who've chosen option A, that half of the kids would be here on certain parts of the week and the other half would be here on the other part of the week. So that's the model, the hybrid model we're getting the most questions about. So that's the one I want to go through in a little bit more detail on the future slides. So the hybrid model would be having 50% of our kids who've chosen option A to be on site at one time. Now, again, if we have at this point, let's say 40% even of our kids who are choosing option B, that only leaves us with about 60% of our kids choosing option A. And if only half of them come at one time, we could be down to about 30% of our kids on site at any one time. So that's going to make our buildings far less crowded than they might have been if we had 100% of our students on campus. The kids would run this schedule. So we would have the A group on week 1 going to school on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the B group would come on Thursday, Friday. The following week, week 2, the A group would be Monday, Tuesday, and the B group would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So always Monday, Tuesday for A, always Thursday, Friday for B, and then that Wednesday would be alternating. We have moved the early out then because of that Wednesday alternating day. We will be moving that to Wednesday instead of Thursday like it has been. Let's think about when those kids are on site, what will that be? What will it look like for them? It's going to run a typical schedule as you might have expected it to kind of look like last spring or last winter. However, there's going to be extended health and safety precautions that'll be happening throughout the day. Again, as I mentioned before, we're going to have approximately 30% of our kids on site at once. So with those reduced numbers, we're able to put in a lot more health and safety precautions. We're going to have daily cleaning and sanitation of the classrooms. Our classroom configuration at the elementary will be in cohorts. So the students who are in that classroom, the A group or the B group, they will stay together all day and there will not be intermingling of classrooms throughout the building. So we're keeping that cohort small and isolated to the best extent possible. We will put in some contact guards in those areas like the main office where we might have a little more people, more traffic. And of course, we are requiring face coverings for all of our staff and all of our students. So that will be a requirement and that will help as well. And finally, we're going to be practicing hand hygiene and etiquette throughout the building, helping kids, remember to wash their hands and to stay safe and stay away from others as much as possible. We are going to go through some more details about what this on-site will look like tomorrow night at the board meeting. So if you can join us at the board meeting, you'll hear a lot more detail about kind of what the hallways might look like, what lunch might look like, what recess might look like. So I would encourage you to join the board meeting tomorrow night. What will it look like if you're off-site? So 2 or 3 days a week, your students will be off-site. They will be at home and they will be learning. The off-site days will have some limited synchronous time. So what you see here in orange would be the time that the students would need or would be invited to, I guess, invited to join their class through a Zoom meeting. So we would like them every day, probably the first half hour of the day from 8 to 8:30, to join their classroom. That would be a time when they could meet the kids from the other half of the classroom. So if they're in the B group, they would sign in on a Monday morning. They would be able to join that class meeting for the A students. That would be a time where we can really address social emotional learning. And that would also be a time then when the teacher can kind of direct the kids and give them some reminders about what work they have in front of them for the rest of the day. Then the rest of the day is fairly asynchronous, flexible time for you as a parent to help your child when you are able. And if that's during the day, that's fabulous. If that's at night, that's understandable too. But the teachers will assign regular work for your child to do on those off days. So they will be getting English language arts lessons. They will have videos to watch. They will have assignments to complete. They will have expectations to work on Dreambox or Lexia. They will have some activities to do for specials. They will have assignments that the teachers are designing and for the students to be expecting to complete. And then at some point in the day, this other orange spot, at some point in the day, we will have a certified staff member check in on you and check in on your student just to see if they have any questions, if things are going okay. That could maybe be done by email, it could be by a Zoom, it could be by a phone call. We just want to make sure that the kids are keeping up with the assignments that the kids or the teachers are giving, and that if there's any questions, we can help troubleshoot those before 2 or 3 days go by and we haven't heard from you. There may also be in this green area here, there may also be some time when a student might get some additional support. So if you have a child who might be receiving IEP services or ELL services or Title I or even ELP services, then there may be some times on those off days that they would be meeting with the teacher through a Zoom meeting and getting some additional support. The same schedule can look like this. So it would look like possibly, and again, this is flexible for you as a parent, but maybe in the morning you would join that class meeting. And then the rest of the day is very flexible time. So you might spend some time here doing your English language arts assignments, doing the lessons, completing the assignments, working on Lexia. You might take a break at some point in the morning. Then you might move on to math, and you would do your math assignments, practice your math facts, do your Dreambox. You might have some time to pick a specials activity for you to do, maybe in music or art. Certainly take some time for lunch and have kind of another break at that time. You might have an intervention scheduled for your student. Again, that would be if they were entitled to a special service. And then you might have the afternoon where maybe you would do some science and social studies and you would complete those assignments as well, and then have some independent reading time. So this is a possible schedule for you, but again, all of that gray area is flexible, so that can be designed however it meets the needs of your family. So that is the hybrid of the option A. Now I'm going to turn it over, if that's all right, to Eliza. And we'll go into what option B would look like if it is a complete pre-K-12 online learning program.
Amy, do you want me to jump into this, or did you want to go to the questions in the chat box?
Yeah, maybe we should take some questions. So the panelists were looking through specific to the hybrid. I'm seeing a lot of questions about assignments of A and B students, and that's something we're going to work on. So as soon as that registration period closes on Wednesday evening, we'll be able to start to figure out where that 50-50% split is going to be. Our tech department, along with our director of tech and innovation, Adam Kerr, they're working on that right now. And again, we'll be able to, our goal is to hopefully communicate that out to parents by the end of the week. We've also had some questions about whether, families would get to stay together. So whether, no matter what level they're at, and that is something that we are working to do as well. And we also know that sometimes all of our families don't have the same last name. So we're working through how we can work some magic to, as best as possible, make sure that happens for our families. We have some questions about Lexia and Dreambox. And sorry, Diane, I was trying to monitor the chat, so I'm not sure how much and Lexia and Dreambox and that suggested schedule for offsite days.
Certainly. So we know in the spring, Lexa and Dreambox became a strong component of our program. For this coming year, we feel that it's going to be a supplementary piece of our program. So it'll be a way that students can get some differentiation in their learning, but it will not be the core part of our learning program.
We still would like there to be an emphasis, though, on all of our students meeting their weekly usage minutes. So that'll be monitored and tracked, but like Diane said, it's not going to become the focal point of what we do. And you'll hear that as well in the PK-12 online discussion here in a minute. There also was some questions about Chromebooks. So we are going to have and publish eventually dates for Chromebook pickups at the elementary level, as well as preschool iPad pickup. And then we'll also have some other offerings where students will be able to come and collect their textbooks, workbooks, computer if they have enrolled in the PK-12 online program. So I also saw a question about PK enrollment. If you go back to the enrollment tab, Diane,
Sure.
There is in the new students section of that tab, there's a section for PK in there, which is going to, by and large, take you over to the pre-K web pages, but they can get you started. And we definitely have interest from some of our preschool families into the PK-12 online learning program as well. So that is available. Is anyone else, any of our panelists noticing other questions unique to hybrid? Thank you, Diane. I did see a question in the chat about asked about paperwork for the online program. There is no paperwork. It's only the selection in the parent permission section and e-registration through PowerSchool. So there's no other extra paperwork associated with the PK-12 online program. All right, Eliza, I think we'll turn it over to you.
All right, great. There's a lot of questions I'm seeing come through the chat box that I think will be answered in the next few slides. So hopefully I'm able to get some of these questions answered for you. First of all, I just want to thank you all for joining, and I feel super fortunate to be able to discuss this schedule. This is something that we have worked on extensively with a group of teachers throughout the summer, and so I feel fortunate to be able to finally bring some voice to the schedule. The one that you're viewing right now is what you've seen published online for the past few weeks. And the biggest, I use the word criticism lightly, but the biggest criticism I heard is like, oh my goodness, that's so much screen time. Our kids are sitting in front of a screen from 8 to 12, and then again from 1 to 3. And I just want to, I couldn't reiterate more, that's absolutely not what we are suggesting or expecting of any child, or of anyone as an educator expecting that that would be the way that we would want to deliver any kind of instruction to your students. So I want to just focus on this schedule here, and let's, for ease of the conversation, let's just look at 3rd grade. And I want to kind of take you through the typical day of what we would be expecting from a 3rd grader. So one thing that this online learning program does offer is continuity Monday through Friday. And so what a student would have Monday would be the same schedule, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so for this 3rd grade student, from 8 to 8:30, they would be engaged in a class meeting. And that would be with their online teacher and with their online class of 3rd graders. We are trying to group students together by their home building, but we know that that's not going to be it's not going to be available everywhere, just depending on where the numbers are across the district. But we will have a classroom teacher and a class, and we'll talk a little bit about class sizes in a slide in just a couple minutes. But during that class meeting, that'd be a time to really connect and do a social emotional check-in, to talk about what our schedule might be looking like, just to really build that classroom community. That's one thing that we know as educators is extremely important for our kids, is to make that connection and build that rapport, teacher to student and student to student. And so in this online format, that is what our focus will be in that class meeting for all grades. So then what you're going to see in that 3rd grade schedule is the green section, and that is the core language arts. Our core language arts is a repository of videos that has been created by a certified Iowa City School District teacher over the past month or so, that follows along with our K2 curriculum of Super Kids and our 3-6 curriculum of Wonders. And so there will be a pre-recorded video that students can access and watch and follow along and potentially do some workbook work just in conjunction with that. The thing with that core language arts piece is we have put it in the schedule from 8:30 to 9. However, that's flexible. That is not synchronous. And synchronous means live Zoom. Needs to be logged in at a specific time. That core language arts piece could be done whenever it works for your family or given whatever circumstance you're in at home. But then again, that purple section from 9 to 10 is for small group reading. We are not asking that your child is in an hour-long small group. They would be assigned a 20-minute time period between, probably somewhere between actually 8:30 and 10. And that classroom, your online classroom teacher would have a small group of about, I don't know, 7 to 8 students that would engage in small group reading lesson. So you'd be working on skills specific to that small group, relating back to whatever the core standard or the core skills that we are working on that week. And so when you're not engaged in your small group, the students would either be watching the video for the core language arts lesson or engaged in some what we call as educators must do, may do work. The work that the teacher is assigning through Seesaw, which is our online platform that we're going to be using at the elementary level, or in that workbook, just to reinforce the skills that they're learning both with the core language arts lesson and the small group reading. And so that is an hour and a half of reading instruction. However, we are asking in there that your child be engaged in at least a 20-minute Zoom face-to-face meeting with a small group. So the other time around there, if it happens between 8:30 and 10, fantastic. If it happens between 5 and 6 p.m., fantastic. It happens on the weekend, again, fantastic. We just want it to happen. And so there is that flexibility in that schedule. Then for every grade, but for this third grade, it is 10 to 10:30. That would be your specials time. And so each class will have 5 specials throughout the week: art, music, PE, classroom counseling or guidance, and library. And that would be led by a certified teacher in that area. And so that would be another synchronous where they would come on, join their class, and be engaged in those fun and engaging activities. Then for my specific third grader here, we're going to tackle math from 10:30 to noon. Again, extremely similar to the language arts piece. There would be this repository of videos, so a lesson that I'm going to assign you that's going to be already in your preloaded Seesaw schedule for the week. And then you're going to have your small group math time, where again, you would have the teacher and a small group of about 7 to 8 students working specifically on what you need to support that core lesson. Again, can be done from, I know I need to log in because my teacher has assigned me that my small group is from 11 to 11:20. Other than that, it's flexible to get that math stuff done when it works for your family or given your situation. Then students will have a lunch and recess break just on your own for the recess. Lunch is something that will still be discussed at another point about what lunch options are for students that are enrolling in the online program. But that's from 12 to 1. And then from 1 to 2 is small group or individualized learning opportunities. We understand that there are some students in our system that need more support than just that core support that they would be getting in the morning, or more than just those 2 small groups for reading and math. And so that's where the teacher would then be available to assign small groups for students that need additional support. So if you are not a kindergarten family, you have probably been familiar at some point with our FAST assessments and CBMRs and the reading passages. And again, with assessment, universal assessment that we do with math. And so we have talked with you at conferences before about students that need additional intervention support. And so from 1 to 2 is when you would be assigned to your small group to do that. Not everybody in the class or in the system will need an intervention. And if they don't, this is an opportunity to engage in Lexa or Dreambox, or continue to do some of the work from the morning that needs to be done. Or if a student just needs an additional break right there, it's an opportunity to have that as well. And then from 2 to 3 is an asynchronous. And again, asynchronous just means really flexible. It doesn't have to be done at that time. And those would be science, social studies, health lessons that would be in there. And those would, again, just as the core lessons for language arts and math are pre-recorded by, again, certified Iowa City School District teachers, or assignments and activities that have been put in to Seesaw by the classroom teacher. And then that would, I think my internet's kind of being funny. I see my face delaying a little bit, so I apologize if my voice is dragging out. And then again, that would conclude the day for your elementary student. So I know that I just covered a whole lot of stuff in that schedule. And I know that it is probably just consuming for those of you who haven't had a chance to really dive in. And I understand that, because to be honest with you guys, I'm a parent of 2 primary kindergarten and 2nd grade daughters. And I understand that you guys are all making a really hard decision, because we're asking you to decide between 2 things that we don't know. We've never experienced. And so I appreciate that this is a challenging decision for you to make. But I'm just hoping that through this panel today, we can provide you with some clarity to be able to make an educated decision that works best for your family. So the next slide there, just as we would differentiate everything for your students that are in front of us, we're differentiating the schedule just so that you all can see it in a different way, if this is most helpful for you. But this just goes ahead and kind of shows in that orange that synchronous. So that synchronous is really that live Zoom. We need you logged in at a very specific time to engage in whatever it is that your class is doing. And so there, again, that class meeting, a scheduled specials time, which is about 20 to 30 minutes a day, and then your daily instruction in the small group through those Zooms, which would be approximately 20 minutes for both of those. So if you were to add that up, it's about 100 minutes of synchronous learning throughout a student's day. And then that gray piece then has those asynchronous, again, flexible activities and lessons or assignments would be assigned in Seesaw. And we will work with families to make sure you understand how Seesaw works. But that would be loaded in there, and then they can, kids can upload their documents or record. It's actually a really cool program if you haven't had the chance to see it yet. And then there will be the additional support. So if a student needs services to help support an IEP, if they are in an English language learner, if they are in an extended learning program, Title I, or receive additional reading or math support, that would then come throughout the day during one of those asynchronous independent times. Our biggest strive, I guess, with this program is to make sure that no matter what option you're choosing, that you get the same high quality expectation and high quality education that we promise you every single day. And so whether you're in the online program or you're in the regular standard enrollment continuum, we are promising the same high quality education. And so we would be using same curriculum. I know that was a question. I'm just trying to kind of read the chat as I go to. That is a question I saw in there. We are using the same curriculum, the same materials, very similar materials. And our pacing, we will try to do very similarly as well, because we are aware that that trimester is kind of that trigger point that you could be going from online to on-site or vice versa, on-site to online. So we want to make sure that there's that continuous instruction and there's not a gap no matter where you go. And then the same thing if you decide to not rejoin back on site until the following school year, that there wouldn't be any students that were behind or left out because of the model that they selected. And then again, one more way to see that same schedule. So I will just kind of leave this up here. Just another way that you could possibly look at something if you wanted to, just had it broken out yet again. But I hope what you're able to see in this is that we are trying to be absolutely flexible as we need to be. We understand that some people are choosing this online program because they do not feel comfortable sending their students to school at this time. And so we also understand that we have some families that are going to be doing their best, and that is what we ask always, just doing their best to support their student at home and may not have an abundance of time to sit down with their student from 8 to 3. And so we wanted to provide that flexibility for families to be able to support as best as they can, whether that's, again, like I said before, in the evenings or on the weekends, however they need to complete the work. And then this last piece then on here that I'm going to talk about is just some logistics, kind of some housekeeping stuff about the online learning program. Our class sizes may look a little bit larger than some of our buildings have typically seen before. And so in kindergarten, they would be around 24 students. First and second grade would be around 28, and then 3 through 6 would be around 32 students in the online classroom. I believe I spoke to this at the beginning of my little segment here, that we will give all of our efforts to try to group students in the same building in the same online section, but it may not be possible everywhere, just given if, for example, you only have 22 6th graders in one section. We would obviously, want to make that a full section, adding some students from another building. One thing I think is extremely important is that every single teacher in this online program is an Iowa City Community School District certified teacher. And so we will not be using educators from, I believe the question one in here was if we'll be using teachers in the elementary piece in Edgenuity. But in the elementary, they are all certified ICCSD teachers. Just to reiterate what I spoke to a few minutes ago, the curriculum materials are going to be the same as what is offered on site. We want to make sure that everybody is getting that high quality education that we expect of ourselves to deliver to our students. And every student will get a school district issued Chromebook, and we are going to be working and communicating that out soon about our deployment model. But we anticipate it to be similar to how we did the material distribution in the spring. And with that, I just kind of poured my brain out to all of you guys. So if there's questions that you have seen in here that you think that I need to answer, if anybody else on here wants to answer, please do. But again, I'm with you guys. It's a tough decision, but my one advice is that your decision is yours. It's your family's decision. It's one that's unique to you. And I'll tell you that as soon as my family made our decision, I felt a weight just roll off my shoulders, because it was like, that's decision. I made it. I need to be confident that I made the decision that was best for me, and try to move on to that next piece into that planning. So your stress or emotion or angst is not lost on us. We understand that this is a challenging time, but I will speak on behalf of all of my 21 elementary colleagues, principals, and Greg here, that we are here for questions. So if you have questions about your specific kid, please reach out to us, reach out to your building administrator, and they can help you, point you in a direction that just makes you feel like you're making the most knowledgeable choice.
Eliza, thank you so much. Diane, would you go back a couple of slides? I want to talk about it actually teacher side, so that our parents see, maybe it was 2 slides ago, Diane.
No?
Yeah, that one.
Keep going?
Nope, that one's good. Eliza, do you want to speak
Sorry.
to, so it's showing, whoop. Back one more, Diane.
Back one more. This one?
Nope, sorry.
And 11, slide 11.
So this is showing what the student's day would look like, but Eliza, will you talk about, the classroom teacher where she or he would be doing those other small group reading or small group math, so they can kind of understand that this is a sample. Your child might be asked to come in from 9:40 to 10 o'clock, or you want to talk through?
Yes. Yeah. This was just kind of let's just pretend I'm a 3rd grader, Eliza Proctor, 3rd grader. This was kind of my schedule when my small group was from 9:20 to 9:40. And then again, from 10:30 to 10:50 would be my small group. And so on that master schedule that was colored, you saw an hour of small group, just because that was kind of following in a way at the teacher schedule a little bit. And kind of that classroom schedule, but this schedule that's up there now kind of mimics that of what a student's day would look like. Thanks for bringing that back, Amy. And so you can see those orange pieces are what we call synchronous. You're going to hear that vocabulary a lot, synchronous, which means that live Zoom specific time. And then the white times on here, or gray, I believe, are those asynchronous. And again, there's flexibility. You'll see it just says flexible, because again, for those that are working or not available to help their child at that moment, those are times that can be flexible and done at a different time that works best for your own family.
Thank you, Eliza. I'm seeing several questions come through the chat around our students with IEPs, our ELL students, and students that are part of the ELP program. So I'll take each one of those individually. So for our families that have students in special education that have individualized education plans, our teachers and administrators are working right now to either schedule meetings with parents or call parents to have to make an amendment to their IEP, because it's important for us to put together something that's known as the remote learning plan. And what that sounds like is, oh, that you're automatically telling me I have to go, my child's going to be remote at some point. And that's not the case. The point of putting together a remote learning plan, which is part of the children's IEPs now, not just an Iowa City thing, but a piece that's happening statewide, is to talk with parents and that team about what would happen if our students are not 100% face-to-face, because our IEPs are built for 100% face-to-face instruction. So if we're in a hybrid learning environment, what does that situation look like for my student in special education and their specific needs, as well as if we as a district were offsite 100% because the transmission rate in the community, we had the permission from the Department of Ed to go offsite temporarily. That could be a scenario. Or for our families that have elected into the PK-12 online learning program, that's also where we would be writing what is going to uniquely happen for those individuals. So if you haven't been and you have a student in special education, you will be contacted in the near future about an IEP meeting. For our students that are English language learners, we also will be prepared to work with our families. Of course, we've got our English language learners at a variety of proficiency levels. And so we will match our instruction to that. So if they are part of that PK-12 online learning program, for the most part, we would have them follow the school schedule. But during that intervention block time from 1 to 2 o'clock or so, that's an opportunity for ELL teachers to be working with our ELL students as well. And then as far as our students that are involved in the ELP program, we also will be providing that extra support there. Looking for other questions now. We had a question about would we ever be balancing our schools? So depending on the amount of students or families that have selected into the PK-12 online program, if we see a high percentage in one of our elementary buildings, would we shift students from one attendance zone to another to balance out the schools that way? We have no intention of doing that. Our students will all stay in their home schools. So just on the flip side of that, at trimester, if our parents are electing back into whatever of that return to learn model that we're in, students will be transitioning back to home schools as well. As far as staffing though, I just want to make sure that we're all real clear. We are working through that piece right now, and I'll just give the example at Lemmy Elementary. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be assigned a Lemmy teacher. It will be a district teacher like Eliza alluded to before. I see a lot of questions coming in about workbooks and worksheets. When we do the PK-12 online material rollout, we will be rolling out textbooks, and there are workbooks associated with both our reading and language arts programs. And so it will be more along the lines of workbooks versus worksheets. And then through Seesaw, there's a way to turn in assignments, and we're going to teach the students how to do that. All right.
Couple
What other questions?
Amy, that I saw too. Banded orchestra option for students, whether they're online or hybrid, so we can have that be an option. You answered the ELP question, that would be an option too. Students who are online will be assessed through the FAST assessments. They will take any assessment that students who are on site would be taking as well. Students who are in the hybrid would receive a Chromebook as well as the students who are on site. So no matter which A or B, your students will be able to receive a Chromebook to do their work. Someone had asked about materials. If I'm doing online instruction, how might I know what materials my child might need to do a science experiment or PE activity? Our teachers who are creating those courses right now are trying to be very creative and very flexible in the kinds of materials that they're asking kids to use in any kind of project or activity. So they're trying to think of things that you would have on hand already at home. For instance, PE, they would say, use a ball. We're going to teach you the skill. If you don't have a ball, use a rolled up sock. So they're trying to find different, different activities for kids to be able to do, or just thinking about what kids might have on hand. And then someone asked too, which is a great question. If you choose option A and the district, because of COVID positivity rates, has to all move to online, will that look more like option B? And the answer is yes. If we end up all going to 100% online, then that schedule looks more like the option B schedule and less like the off-site hybrid schedule that we showed you.
I saw that question come in as well, Diane. And there was a question about when students are when we're in the hybrid schedule, their on-site teacher, if that's the same teacher that they're working with in those off days, and that's also true. So the students in the off-site days for hybrid do not join the PK-12 online learning program teacher. Again, I think this question's been answered, but just to reiterate, we're going to start to group our students by grade, by building, but the cohorts aren't always going to split equally. So there could be some classes that are full of Lemmy Elementary students or Longfellow Elementary students, but there might be another section that has building students. It just is going to depend for us where those cohorts break. And there was a question about how soon will we know students as teachers. I would say that that's going to be fairly typical of what you would have seen in the past. And I know some of our buildings at the elementary level have like a roll-up day in the spring. Obviously, we weren't able to do that this year, but I would say that you're gonna find out, I'm not gonna promise you a day, but I would say most likely by Wednesday, Thursday of that week prior to school starting, which is not unlike what a lot of our buildings do when they release names the night of ice cream socials. Speaking of ice cream socials, we're not going to have, of course, ice cream socials this year, but we're working on putting together virtual meet and greets and offering them by grade level and not having all the grade level virtual meet and greets happen at the same time. So you'll eventually get an email with a Zoom link that your student and you can attend the virtual meet and greet. And that will be on either the Wednesday or Thursday evening prior to school starting. I did see a question early on about preschool and having difficulty in receiving the information back so that you could get moving through PowerSchool. If you're a preschool family in that situation and you're waiting to hear back from Tammy Woodring, we will work with you if it's past that deadline. So if you've been working with Tammy already, just know that we'll continue to take care of you. We know that preschool enrollment is just a little bit different. Sorry, Diane.
No, go ahead. One question that's come up a bit is what are the class sizes for the on-site? So you kind of know those a little bit better than I do. We would follow the RAM class sizes, but then you would understand that it would be half as many that would be there on A and half as many that would be on B. But do you know those numbers off the top of your head, Amy?
I don't know those numbers. And I think what we're prepared to say at this point is after Wednesday evening, when we have the PK-12 online numbers solidified, we're going to have a much better idea of the number of teachers that that's going to take. We also know that we have approximately 360 elementary teachers hired this year as part of our workforce. We are working currently through a staff survey right now where we are trying to understand intentions as we move forward into the fall with our staff. And so once we have all of that kind of crystallized or solidified, that's going to paint our picture. Of course, if we come back in a hybrid model, if that's just the decision that's made tomorrow evening, our class sizes are going to be drastically reduced. And if you think about, as I look through our elementaries, we've got a substantial number at every building. It's not like, we've got low percentages in some of our buildings. We're seeing substantial numbers. And so we can tell you that those class sizes are going to be reduced.
Amy, would you comment on where this information can be found after today's webinar?
Sure. Diane is recording the webinar and we will post it back to the Return to Learn page. So if you go back out to the district website, or if you're on the district website, the very first tab on the left is COVID. And under that, there's a drop down for Return to Learn. And that's where we've been posting our previous board presentations, as well as trying to build that site out to provide parents with as much information as possible. So if you look over to the right side, you can see that their continuum of our learning models are there. We talk more about hybrid or PK-12 online learning program, which has several pages associated with that are there. Our continuous learning online schedules are there. So as Diane alluded to and Eliza discussed, if the district moves to 100% remote, whether that's temporary due to the transmission rates in the county or the PK-12 online learning program, that's the schedules that we'll use there. Right down below there is our previous presentations, and then a nod to just the various Return to Learn team members who have been associated with our work this summer. Other questions that you can see?
We have a question about band that I don't know the answer to. I know at high school we are not having band because of we're just doing small group instruction that's distanced. I don't know what's happening with it. Do we know yet? We're still working on it.
Diane, do you know the the answer about band. I'm not sure.
While they're thinking, I was also going to answer one other one. Oh. The question, Diane, was about band. Do we have a plan for band for fifth and sixth graders?
So certainly there will be an opportunity for band for 5th and 6th graders. If you're on site, you know, that might look a little different than you might have expected in the past. The band teachers are looking at very smaller ensembles rather than larger groups of kids who would be playing together. If you are in a completely online program, then we would still have the opportunity for your child to Zoom in and have lessons with the band teacher and to do some small ensemble work with other kids as well.
And one other thing I just mentioned, one of the first things we did this summer was do inventories in our curriculum for what we call just-in-time learning. So we wanted to evaluate what kids might have missed out in the spring and make sure that that was accounted for in real time when we presented with other challenges in the next grade, so that they would get retaught or taught the skill that they may have missed. So that's how we're going to account for that. It's just another one of those questions that I wanted to answer. Thank you.
I'm going to jump in now and unfortunately have to call the meeting to a close. I'm getting a message that the secondary webinar can't start until we close out. So I just want to say thank you. I know at one point we were over 800 participants tonight, and it's wonderful that we had that kind of interest, and we really appreciate you joining us. If you want to hear more, please join us for the board meeting tomorrow evening. And thank you to all of our panelists. Appreciate you all. Take care, everyone.